I'm John Batchelor. Mary Kissel, the editorial board of the Wall Street Journal, is here, and we're welcoming Eddie Hayes, our consigliere, as well as our favorite Democrat in New York. But before we go to the very profound and challenging issue of public order in New York City under Mayor de Blasio and the challenge for the NYPD, Mary apparently was on a plane and has rediscovered something we've all known about Eddie Hayes. He's a movie star. What did you see, Mary?
He is a movie star. I was at the end of Goodfellas, and yeah, it's a long movie, but
which is one of the great American movies.
One of the great American movies, and I'm at the end, and the lawyer gets up in court to defend the gangster, and guess who it is? It's Eddie.
That is you, right, Eddie? That's not your younger brother, right, Ed?
That's me. No, that's definitely me.
Eddie, I'm yelling and screaming on the plane. I'm waving my hands around. I'm watching it on the back of the chair in front of me.
I'm very fortunate because I was on Goodfellas, one of the great gangster movies of the 20th century. I figured prominently in Bonfire of the Vanities, which was one of the best books of that period of time. So
You're going to live forever, Eddie.
Well, and I was in that play with Tom Hanks.
Right.
Oh, God, it goes on and on.
In other words, he's on a roll. Fine. So now
officiality you can't beat.
Now we call upon your common sense, oh movie star. The issue, as we all know, is very unhappy, and it's based upon tragic events in the city over this last year. However, right now, the question of Mayor de Blasio's relationship or not relationship with the NYPD has reached into the city council, where the city council speaker, Melissa Mark Viverito, who is a progressive Democrat, she shares that philosophy with the mayor, is seeking to decriminalize what we understand to be lifestyle violations in the city, such as jumping a turnstile or smoking in public, what is generally grouped as the broken window syndrome.
Right.
And Eddie, remind everybody, Bill Bratton, who is the police commissioner here in New York right now and was before, remind everybody his theory of broken window and how it works for better policing.
His theory is that you can control public order and increase people's feeling of security in the streets, that you can lessen crime. I remember I had dinner with him as he was just about to start being a police commissioner, and I was telling him how upset my wife was because she was intimidated by the squeegee people as you went off.
This is the 80s, 1980s, 1990s.
And you know what he did? He looked at me and he said, Eddie, tomorrow afternoon they're not going to be there. And you know what? Tomorrow afternoon they weren't there anymore.
Now, Eddie, but the stopping the fare jumpers and the squeegee men, also or arresting them rather, allowed the police to arrest people who had committed bigger crimes. Because
Absolutely.
These were the people who were committing
also remember
the bigger crimes.
You know, a lot of people that jump on the subway are there to commit crimes on the subway. I mean, now it used to be to getting on the subway was a very unpleasant experience. It doesn't happen anymore. And one thing is when you cut down on fare beating, you cut down on people that are getting on the subway to commit crimes. You know, this whole thing, this whole idea of decriminalizing thing, you cut the crime rate by not making anything a crime.
What we have now, and I described this, we work and live in Manhattan, and we spend a lot of time in Manhattan, so we see it, and perhaps I don't know how it is for the boroughs. Brooklyn, I imagine, is the same process because it's dense and it's got a lot of traffic and a lot of commuters. Mary commutes from Brooklyn into the city, so I will say that certainly that's true, and I'm going to guess in parts of Queens the same way. What we have now is there are people who look like they're in trouble, look like they have no funds. They used to be classified as homeless, but that doesn't describe all of it because there could be chemical abuse issues, there could be people who are mentally ill, you can't tell. But routinely now in public spaces that are squeezed in Manhattan because we all spend the time going to and from the same trains or the same taxis, there are people laying on the steps, so you must step around them, or smoking cigarettes on the steps, or generally what you'd have to say, acting alienated from the immediate environment of commercial life.
Or accosting you.
And the NYPD, Eddie, is not moving them on. I have to believe that's purposeful, and now the city council speaker wants to legislate so that the NYPD will never move them on. Well,
I agree with that. I mean, I think that it's a very important political definition. They feel that these people are being harassed by the police. But I mean, you know, if you want to maintain... Oh, the other thing is, remember, for everyone that's on Park Avenue, there's 10 of them on Lenox Avenue, right? So the fact of the matter is that always the communities get most damaged by this are the poor minority communities. So it's not as if they don't have this problem all over the city, and worse in poor communities. I mean, back when we had so much crime, it was the poor communities that were where most of the crime was committed and suffered the most. I really just don't follow this whole concept.
The city council speaker, this is the quote from the Harry Siegel's column in the New York Daily News. Turnstile jumping, says Melissa Mark Viverito. Turnstile jumping, to me, is something minor, and I don't think a young person's life should be derailed because of it. This particularly impacts young men of color and their communities. It's a systematic issue when it seems to be impacting one part of the community more than others.
Eddie, where is the personal responsibility?
The part is, you don't get a criminal record for jumping turnstiles. You got to do it about 30 times before they get a criminal record. They bring you down, you get arrested. It's very annoying. They say, all right, you spent a night in jail, you can go home. You never get a criminal record. Maybe after the second or third time they make you plead to disorderly conduct, which is like a violation. It's not a crime.
But, Eddie, what about the personal responsibility? Effectively, what the speaker is saying is, oh, you broke a law? Well, that's okay, because we wouldn't want to muddy up your record for the acts that you willfully committed.
Well, look, we've had this debate before. I realize I'm a Democrat and therefore inherently unreliable, but on these issues we agree. I mean, I think this whole business of a small minority in the city moving the city in a direction that caused us so much heartache many years ago is just ridiculous.
There's no indication that the mayor or the speaker will move from speaking to their base on these issues of the Tale of Two Cities. And in this particular instance, I don't think there's a debate, Ed. I think what we're going to see is more cigarette smoking, more homelessness, more trouble in the subway, and it will rise to that tempo that was insufferable in the 90s. It was insufferable. It led to, well, maybe that's what we want. We want the public to respond in 3 years' time when Mr. de Blasio comes up for re-election. Ed Hayes, Mary Kissel, I'm John Batchelor.